All right, in just 5 months, the number of children in the Horn of Africa facing deadly conditions has doubled. That's according to UNICEF, the UN agency that provides humanitarian aid to children around the world. 20 million children in places like Ethiopia, Kenya, Somalia are experiencing the horrors of famine, even if officially a famine has not yet been declared. Recent reports describe toddlers with advanced forms of protein deficiency, their bodies bloated from fluid retention, their hair falling out, critically ill babies who are listless and dehydrated. Many of these children can't grasp the causes for their suffering, climate change, conflict, economic instability, but adults can. And while organizations like UNICEF are working tirelessly to save lives, it appears each passing day brings with it a more dire outlook. Let's bring in Catherine Russell, Executive Director of UNICEF. Catherine joins us live now from New York. Catherine, nobody ever expects to outlive their child. Nobody ever expects that. But in the Horn of Africa, that's literally what is happening every day. You're seeing entire families gather around to share just one meal. And that's after, by the way, walking for miles to find that one meal. Just explain to us what children in Somalia, in the Horn of Africa in general, are experiencing right now.
Well, I would say it's almost hard to imagine it, honestly. I traveled there in May. I was in Ethiopia, and the thing that was so striking is how dry everything was. I mean, there was just nothing green anywhere. Dry land. You would see animals on the side of the road who had died, who literally just wasted away. And of course, once the animals start wasting away, that creates all sorts of problems for communities, right? Because that's how communities usually support themselves. The families start moving, and of course the families are vulnerable, and the most vulnerable, as you say, are the children, who really are more susceptible to heat. They are more susceptible to disease like cholera, as was said, or measles. And so what happens with these children, I visited several of them, and they are, I mean, to say wasting away, it's just really horrifying to see it. They are literally skin and bones. And I remember I walked into one hospital room when I was there, and the room was full of babies and their mothers kind of perched on the side of the beds. And the whole room was so quiet. And the doctor told me it's because they literally just don't even have the energy to cry. So I think when you see that, it was truly heartbreaking. I mean, the good news is that we can treat those children if we get there. We have something called ready to use formula, which is essentially like a peanut paste that if we give it to the children, we can help them survive. But that's a short-term response, right? We need to help these communities become more resilient to the challenges that they're seeing because of climate.
And I mean, I just thinking about, what you said, that they don't even have the energy to cry, they're so hungry. But on top of that, just how much food we throw away in the Western world. Yeah. Meantime, this is what's happening in the Horn of Africa. Nicholas Kristof, the New York Times columnist, actually visited Somalia last year. He wrote an opinion piece about it. And in it, he said that as he was interviewing and talking to starving children, he had an unbearable thought. He said, a mistreated chicken or hog on an American factory farm enjoys better odds of survival than a child in Somalia. What do we need to do? I mean, obviously, we can't just put the burden on UNICEF. We can't just put the burden on your organization. What do we need to do as a broader global society to stop this from continuing to happen?
I think it's a combination of challenges. The thing I loved about his piece was that we actually know what to do. We can help these communities. We can certainly feed the children. We can work on nutrition issues. We are making progress on issues like water, digging deeper boreholes, things like that. But I think overall, we need to understand that this part of the world and other parts as well are so susceptible to climate change. And we have to help these communities become more resilient to what's coming down the road. We're not really going to change it. I mean, when I was in Ethiopia, they were in their 5th year, coming into their 5th year of dry seasons, right? So they literally had no water. So we can't fix that, but we can help communities learn how to do better to find water. We use satellite imaging to try to figure out where the water is. We dig really deep boreholes to try to get to the water. We try to educate the populations on nutrition given the limited resources that they have. But you're so right. UNICEF can't solve this problem. This has to be a global effort to say communities need help. We have to do better. And as you point out, they need to be treated better than the sort of farm animals. I mean, they are human beings. They deserve dignity. They deserve everything we can possibly do to help them.
I think what's really challenging is that so much of it is beyond our control, meaning of course, we can donate money, we can donate to UNICEF. And thank you so much, by the way, Catherine, for all the work that you're doing. However, when you think about climate change, which we can kind of do something about, although the effects of that will not be immediate, there's also the war in Ukraine, right? And what that means for food insecurity, which we really are powerless to stop. And also, I mean, Al-Shabaab, it's not just lack of food that's killing children in Somalia, it's also terrorism with the war against Al-Shabaab in their own country. So how do you solve things that, I guess in the short term, seem somewhat unsolvable?
We look at it as sort of cascading crises that have made it just about the worst time in history to be a child in many of these places. And it's three things, really. It's, as you say, crisis, and that can be these sort of conflicts that Ukraine, the Al-Shabaab folks, any place where children are really vulnerable because of the conflict that's going on around them. They are always the most vulnerable. We have climate, as we talked about, really difficult for children, really makes it difficult for them to survive and then to thrive. And then we also have COVID, and I don't want to forget about that because that has had a terrible impact on children. I mean, our estimates are 100 million children were plunged into poverty as a result of COVID. They're not getting routine vaccinations, and their education suffered. I mean, our estimates are overall worldwide, 70% of 10-year-olds in the world cannot read a simple sentence. Okay, that's a staggering number. And I think that it can be daunting for sure, and we all have our moments when we feel like this is so overwhelming. But the truth is, we do know what to do. We just have to come together as an international community and say, children, it can't just be kind of glib, like, oh, children are the future. Children are the future, right? And if we don't take care of them, if we don't make sure that they are able to not just survive these challenges, but really thrive and do well, what does that say for the future of the world? I think it's very concerning, and I think it needs to be a priority for all people around the world.
I mean, you bring up so many good points. I mean, yes, obviously we have to focus on the short term and making sure that these kids actually have something to eat. But on top of that, I mean, when you have children who are starving, I mean, literally starving, of course they're not going to school. Do you know what I mean? Of course they're not going to school. That's the last thing on their parents' mind. And so what does that do to an entire generation? Catherine, I mean it when I say thank you so much for the work that you're doing. All of us, I think I can speak for all of our viewers, we all appreciate you. Thank you.